in excess of 70% of the organic click-throughs are going to come in those top 3 positions. You would have to have 1,000 people searching for that particular search term a month to generate even just 10 clicks.
So are there certain brands or niches or industries that the ads work better for, and others that just shouldn't really bother with that and should just be focusing on SEO?
The best advice that I could give you is to...
Hi, welcome back to the Marketing Game, and I'm here today with Paul Coombes from Beyond Your Brand, and we're talking about SEO and why your SEO might not be working, but also going to dig into some of the other things that I've been hearing about, rumours that maybe Google searches is moving to the side, that the social's taking over, AI as well. But I think Paul's got some interesting thoughts on that. But welcome first to the podcast, Paul. How are you doing?
Thank you, Gillen. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you give our viewers just a little bit of background about yourself?
I'm probably less interested in the business, but I'm the co-founder of Beyond Your Brand. We're a digital marketing agency based in Witney, in West Oxfordshire.
Right. Okay. And it's SEO is one of the things you specialise in, and that's what we're going to focus on today. Now, I do want to raise this point because I did read recently that Google have dropped in terms of how many people are searching. AI is now being used a lot for answering questions. People are searching more on social. I know that TikTok is getting a lot of search terms now, and you can optimize for search terms on there. But like you're saying, you're data driven. What's the data telling you?
Interestingly, of course, as new channels are being introduced, whether they're new social media platforms or AI, like you say, for looking for answers for specific questions. Of course, there's going to be some sort of dilution, but I think if we keep it in perspective, SEMrush is, for anybody in the industry, that'll be a sort of household name, but essentially it's one of the software tools that is widely respected in the SEO world, and according to them, I did a bit of research for a presentation I was doing for somewhere else, and just in February in the UK, so February 2024, Google was visited 4.4 billion times. I know in this world that when we start talking about millions and billions, that those kind of terms are almost everyday language and they don't wow people. But to put that into perspective, that's 151 million searches per day. It equates to, if you break it down, it's 6.3 million searches an hour. It's 1,700, just over 1,700 searches per second. So, okay, maybe there's a dilution a little bit in terms of market share, but you can safely say that Google is still the primary source for searching.
That's fair. Especially, I can't really get my head around how many people that many people are searching that many times a second. And that's just for the UK. That's okay, but the other criticism that I've heard with Google is that they're pushing ads more, so they get sort of more real estate on the results page than SEO delivered results. Is that right? Are you finding that?
Not more, but it's their revenue generating platform. If you look at the organic positions, if your website ranks for certain search terms, Google doesn't get any revenue from that. We offer SEO campaign management. It's not like we have to give 10% of our management fee to Google. So there's no revenue generated. It's all from ads. But the two things go hand in hand. If Google wasn't the platform that it needed to be, that people go to it as a default to search for, then it wouldn't have the user base and the subscriber base, if you want to call it that, to be able to offer the ads as their source of revenue. So the reason why essentially Google has become this kind of household place to go to for information is because it always prioritized the user journey, always looked at what was the best to serve up. And it's never going to compromise on that, in my opinion, because that is the reason why it can serve ads. So in terms of the real estate, that's always, they changed them from ads to sponsored. It kind of dulls down the fact that somebody's paying to have that space there, I guess. But essentially, it's still generally your first 3 terms that appear as your sponsored ads. Sometimes, depending on, particularly if you're searching for a product, there might be other real estate areas on the search engine results pages where adverts do appear. So they're always going to try and maximize the opportunity for somebody paying for ads, so that people continue to do so and make it more attractive for the people paying for advertising space. But it's never going to be completely at the expense of the natural results that come there, because that's why people use Google.
Thinking about this from a brand's perspective, what's the thing that they should be focusing on then? Organic search results or paid? Because if the paid being served first, like what are they going to get most value out of?
Typically, the best value is out of your organic positions. I think it's pretty widely known, even for people who are non-technical, that those sponsored posts or ads, are advertising posts. People click on them, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, it's the most convenient, so you're going to attract this kind of like natural. I'll click at the top of the page, so you'll get clicks from that. Secondly, I think it's not wrong to assume that businesses who can afford to advertise may well be good businesses, because they're generating revenue, they're generating profit from the service or the products that they provide, enough so that they can actually afford to advertise. So there's a bit of kind of reassurance in there that if they were a sort of non-starter company or didn't have a good client base or weren't generating a profit, that they probably couldn't afford to have that space there. So there is some credibility, I think, with being there. Personally speaking, and perhaps this is because I know the SEO world, because it's what we live and breathe, the most trusted source that I would go to as a starting point, at least, would be the number one organic position, because people have earned their right to be there. It's not easy to obtain those positions, particularly in the competitive industry. So click-through rates, they do vary sort of industry to industry, but the click-through rates for the number one organic position, typically might be around 1 in 3. 1 in 3 of the clicks from the search engine results page were going to be up in that top page, maybe 25% for position 2, and then it sort of starts to drop off a cliff after position 4 or 5 into the sort of 1%, less than 1% mark, whereas your ad sort of space can be, it depends on the ad and again how competitive it things, 1%, 5%, that sort of region. So it will generate clicks, but I still think, and the stats will tell us that the most trusted sources that people will go to, even if there are ads above it, is usually the number one organic positions. We've got used to those organic positions at least displaying the information that we're expecting when we click on those pages.
So are there certain brands or niches or industries that the ads work better for, and others that just shouldn't really bother with that and should just be focusing on SEO?
No, not really. It's not how I would look at it. There's a competitive landscape to advertising. It's not like Google charges for every click to a website from an ad. It's always going to be, let's say, £1. It's not that type of landscape. So you're going to have industries. And again, remember that the ads are associated with the keywords or the search term that somebody used. So I searched for X, these ads were displayed. That search term could be highly competitive. There are times where, there's a time and attendance company that we've worked with where the specific term biometric time and attendance, what people are talking about is clocking in and out on fingerprint readers. Now, for whatever reason, that was a highly competitive search term, not one that had thousands of searches. It's quite niche. But it obviously, those leads generated a lot of money in the industry. Selling software as a service, I guess, one customer could be worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds. So people bid for getting their ads displayed for that particular search term, and it can run into the sort of tens of dollars upwards just for the click. That doesn't even mean that you're going to get the lead or that anybody's going to get in contact with you, just for driving that traffic. Whereas less competitive industries, the clicks could be a few pence, much lower. So you can't sort of say specifically that it would work better for some industries. I think the best way to look at it is that every company will have a multitude of search terms that they might want to be known for. And some of those search terms will be highly competitive. In an SEO sense, that means that you would have to work really hard to get the organic positions. But if they're also competitive in the ad sense, it means that you're paying more per click. So when we start working with clients, or before we start on any campaign, we'll always have a look at that keyword landscape and look at 3 areas in particular. So one is the search intent. That is slightly subjective, but it means that of the list of all possible things that you might want to be known for, which ones have the strongest intent? Which ones, if there were 100 search terms and one of each came to you, which one would you want to talk to first? And it would probably be the one who searched for something so specifically aligned to your product or service, you would prioritize them. So you look at the search intent and see how strong that is. Then you can look at the search volume. So we've had clients come to us before and said, we're not getting any traffic, but we're ranking number one for a particular search term. And when we've gone into have a look at the data and the analytics, you can see that's because it seemed like a sensible search term to go for, but nobody searched for it. Actually, the human beings around the internet just didn't search for it. So you were in number one position. You felt good because when you Googled it yourself, you could see your company coming up, but unfortunately, nobody was searching for it. And then the third sort of metric that's really important in an SEO sense is called keyword difficulty, but in a PPC sense, it's really how competitive it is to pay for those clicks. But what both of those things are referring to how competitive the ranking positions are for a particular search term. So the search intent, you want to make sure it's strong. The search volume, you want to make sure that there are people searching. And then the competitive landscape is your keyword difficulty, or essentially how much you're going to pay every time someone clicks on your ad if you go down that route.
You're using terms like competitive and ranking. It sounds like a race.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best way to think about it. And it's often how we describe, particularly clients who've never done SEO campaigns before, or they're not particularly familiar with how this all kind of works. It is like a race. So every search term that you might want to be known for, consider that a different race, a 1K race in a village through to a marathon. I'll take the car insurance industry. It's typically something that almost every household in the UK has at least one of. So it's a highly competitive industry. Like any race, it's only the top positions that matter. And this is where a lot of people, I think, sort of get it wrong. They do a bit of SEO and they can kind of get themselves up the ranking positions to a certain extent, but not into the positions that matter. So what I would say, just to sort of bring that to life is, if we started working, with you and doing a bit of SEO in the first few months, if you're, let's say you've got 100 competitors, there's 100, clarities out there that you're competing with. And 85% of those, 85 out of that 100, aren't doing any sort of SEO. You can get some quick wins. You could go from position 100 to, say, position 15 quite quickly. And in that sort of race analogy, it's like you started training for it. If 85% of the people in the race have not done any training, then when you start doing some training, you can suddenly beat those people.
Right.
But if we're talking Google, is position 100 and position 15 any different in terms of how it drives results? No. Because nobody goes to position 15 the same as they don't go to position 200. It's the top ranking positions that are important.
So what positions matter?
I mean, the top three positions are the thing that any sort of SEO agency would say that's where you're going to get your click-through rates. In excess of 70% of the organic click-throughs are going to come in those top three positions. By the time you get down to position 10, you're talking typically less than 1% of a click-through rate. So, you would have to have 1,000 people searching for that particular search term a month to generate even just 10 clicks to your website. And remember, those are 10 clicks to your website. They're not conversions. They still don't know these people. So there's another conversion rate that you have to consider, and that is how good is your website at converting those people from people you don't know into people you do know. So, it's that position 15 and position 100 in terms of results, they're the same thing. They're not going to deliver anything. So then you start getting into this sort of competitive world, and you might say, 15 of these people that I want to compete with are doing some training. Well, you just have to train harder. You just have to be that bit better. It's Google doesn't tie anybody for first position or second position. Everything is very linear and vertical. There's position 1, and it sits above position 2, which sits above position 3. So you don't have to be the best website on the internet. You just have to be, for that search term, better than your competition. So you have to have web pages that rank, that Google can see, through the use of its algorithm, that they are the most useful pages for somebody searching for that particular search term, and make sure that you're just doing better than what your competition are doing.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds with that. Your page, how does your page rank for it? Because most people know that you need to put your keywords in, but I understand there's more to it than just keyword stuffing.
Google doesn't publish an instruction book to its algorithm. It's a closely kept secret because it doesn't want other search engines to basically, copy what it does so successfully. So that's like a secret recipe that's hidden in a vault. But Google wants its own platform to be useful to users. It wants to encourage users to come to its platform. So it will tell people how to, generally go about becoming a good website. And one of the acronyms that Google talks about a lot, it used to just be EAT, but they've added an extra E. So it's now EAT. E stands for experience. The second E stands for expertise. The A is authority, and the T is trust. They can sound like the same thing, and for sure, they're kind of intertwined. They're not black and white, separate things. But if you think about it, I'm going to ignore the first E for a second. That was the thing that they added on more recently. The thing that's been there for a long time is expertise, authority, and trust. It wants your website to demonstrate that you can credibly show those three separate areas. So for you to be an expert for your business, you need to understand what you do, what it costs, what are the benefits, what are the features, what are the limitations, everything. That's what people want to know. And that proves that you are an expert in your field. Does it prove that you're an authority in the industry? No, not necessarily. It just says that you know what you're all about.
So how does Google know what your authority is?
So if you think about the very clever people that have put this algorithm together, which gets updated on a daily basis, they've got used to analyzing content and other aspects of your website to determine what it thinks essentially is a scoring metrics along those lines. It's to understand how you're an authority. If you have information about how you fit into the industry, the podcasting industry, the videography industry, for example, and you're willing to share that sort of information, that says that not only, if you tick the expert area, but you also know where you fit in a wider sense, and you're willing to share and contribute to that industry. And that's through the content that you generate. So like if you want something more tangible, that's kind of your statistics and your information. It's the research that you're doing about the industry, including where your business might fit into it. But it's much wider than just talking about your own individual business. So you can kind of score, if you like, highly or lowly or low in that area. And the best way to think about that kind of ranking process is it is a score. Now, I mean, it might not be a score, exactly, 576 out of 1,000. I don't know exactly how it works, but it is a weighting thing. How many tick boxes do you tick? And there's weighting behind certain, some are more important than others. But essentially, the more boxes you tick, particularly the more important boxes, then the more likely you are to outrank your competition. And the authority and trust go hand in hand, because if you build really good authority-based content, what we found with our clients is they can often build up the best quality backlinks. So we have a client in the legal sector in a very sort of specific niche, without sort of go into the details, and we've built content that has become so valuable to some of the complementary industry leaders that they refer to his website that we're optimizing in many of their articles. So they have backlinks from the articles that they're producing referring to this source of data because they know it's high quality content. Google can see those links coming in, and it's like it's like an element of kudos. It's all very well you saying you're the best in the industry, and you might be right. But if somebody else with a high authority in that industry also says, do you know what? Gillen and his services are amazing, it's even better than what you're talking about yourself. It has more credibility.
So those backlinks feed into the authority and the trust. And from what I understand, that so you need to have on your website, you need to not only focus on content optimized for the search terms that you're trying to rank for, but you need to look beyond that and be useful to the industry in general as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those things go hand in hand, and if they're generating high quality backlinks, and I've used that term high quality backlinks several times already because it's so important. Many years ago, Google realized that if you had a link from one website to your website, it was probably an indication of some sort of element of trust, and so it used the quantity of those for a while as a bit of a ranking factor. Then it realized that actually people could spin up a website and just sell those backlinks to other people. So they were of no value. They didn't really demonstrate that the company receiving the backlinks were any better or worse than anybody else. So they realized as a ranking factor, it didn't have the right impact. And so somebody with 2,000 backlinks from spammy sources almost was not a good thing. So Google kind of did away with the quantity and preference the quality of those backlinks. So it can see which websites have a high authority, and that's like somebody else with authority in the industry talking about you, not your next door neighbor. It's that those kind of natural quality backlinks are best obtained through building high quality content, which is naturally shared on the internet.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. But there's a technical side of things as well as the on-page. Which one should you be focusing on first? Because I understand that both are important, but like out of the two, what's the hierarchy?
It depends. If you are looking for results-driven search engine optimization campaigns, you can't ignore either. Again, going back to an analogy term, okay, let's say we're trying to win a race. And so we get a nutritionist in and they talk about our diets. We get a personal trainer in who talks about, aerobic exercising. We get a strength trainer in and all these other people. But let's say, in analogy terms, some of the technical elements. So I could be talking about things like the loading speed of pages and how the code is configured and how images are optimized, those sort of things. They're as important as I did all these things, but I forgot to put trainers on. There are some fundamental elements of a website which can hold back the SEO benefits that you're getting if you're investing in other things like your content and acquiring backlinks and doing sort of digital PR and sharing your content. If some fundamental boxes aren't ticked, then Google will say, well, if that fundamental, so let's say it is your image optimization, you've got one of the things that the challenge in the industry is the smartphone these days. The resolution of the cameras on the smartphone is huge. You can take a picture from a smartphone and blow it up into a massive poster and still have complete clarity. But if you take that image and just put it onto your website, that image is far too big. It doesn't need to be that big because you're talking about an image that only needs to be, a few inches across, and because it's going to be shown on a desktop. So optimizing the images on a web page is a sort of fundamental 101 sort of step of SEO, because more than 50% of our searches are carried out on mobile devices now. And so Google will say, look, maybe you've been brilliant at producing content, maybe you've got some high quality backlinks, but if I sent a user to your website and they happen to be looking from a phone particularly, they're going to wait 10 seconds for it to load. Well, we don't wait 10 seconds. We go and hit the back button and we'll find the next website. That then diminishes the user journey on Google. And then potentially, if that happens, on a consistent basis, people will start searching for other search engines and not using Google. So that you can't, if you want results, you kind of have to look at the breadth of the things that are important, because one key element could be the one thing that just holds you back.
Right. Okay. So, and those key elements seem to be related to the user's experience.
Yeah,
so like
again,
that's for example.
Exactly. That's where we started with this conversation when we're sort of saying, is Google prioritizing ads over organic positions? The fact that we're talking about that is because Google is the go-to place, and the reason why it's go-to place is because it will always prioritize user journey over everything else. It will try to serve up a web page within a website that means that you probably don't have to come back to the search engine to find what you're looking for. That it's provided you with the highest quality website to go to that's going to give you everything that you need. Google's kind of golden nugget would be if the analytics says that every website I sent to, the user got what they wanted, and the next time they came back to Google, it's to search for something different. The more it can see when you come back to its platform to click on the second or the third, the fourth. It's kind of golden KPI is that you never have to do that.
So, website maintenance and focusing on the customer journey is one thing, but and that's the same essentially as SEO then?
No, I wouldn't say. it's often confused, I think, and overused even by other agencies, and I mean that with much respect to our competition. But the way that we like to see that is SEO is a campaign that should deliver results, and ultimately, it's a very simple mathematical proposition. If you spent X on any campaign, it should return, perhaps more in the long term in terms of SEO, but certainly in the long term, it should return more than you spent on it. Otherwise, it was a waste of money. It's that simple. You wouldn't expect an advertising campaign if you put £10,000 of click budget to a month to generate £8,000 and be happy with that. And that's the same in SEO. So we see that very much as a campaign. The fact is that campaign involves a lot of website maintenance and doing healthy things. So I think if you're the owner of a website, you should be doing some regular maintenance and checks and keeping things healthy on your website. I think what happens with a lot of clients and perhaps the way that some people sort of in the industry convey this message is that website maintenance is SEO. I would argue that it's not. I would say it's a component of SEO. And that an SEO requires, an intrinsic strategy. Unfortunately, we have quite a few clients. I mean, I guess fortunately for us, but it's sad that people have kind of wasted time and effort and sometimes money in the past doing what they felt was SEO. We have clients come to us and say, I've invested SEO, for a while, but I'm not getting any results. And when we look at it and sort of, get into beneath the bonnet, you can see that there's fundamental areas that have just been missing, and they just need to plug in together to get those results. So, even if you're not doing SEO, I think for the sake of your users and the basics of Google, you should sort of have a healthy sort of maintenance program and make sure that content is being updated, that things are changing. Most businesses will have at least one new client per month, if not several a day, depending on how busy and big you are. But even things like changing your client testimonials and case studies and reviews and publicizing that at least tells Google, if not your users, that you are alive and that you are kicking and that you care, and that credibility in the user journey is important. We don't want to feel like we've accidentally gone to a brand new startup with no experience and we've paid them to deliver a service. We want to go with people who've delivered that service for people with the same pain points as us, and that gives us that confidence to go with them. You wouldn't go back to a shop very often if it never changed its stock and never changed its its look and feel. That's why big supermarkets have consultants paid lots of money to go in and nurture this. It's a journey, and your website should be considered the same. If it's very static, then your users are going to be uninterested if they're repeat visitors, and they're going to lose interest. Google knows that, so it looks for regular content and regular changes to a website as one of its fundamental factors of saying that's a credible business to potentially send people to.
Paul, that's all been very useful. Can you leave us with one piece of advice? I
think the best advice that I could give you is I know we didn't talk about the expertise with that EEAT, so I'll cover that very quickly. What Google realized is that if you ticked all the other boxes with the content and how you structure your site and you get some good quality backlinks with some PR, you could almost boost yourself up the rankings very quickly, even though you might only have a year's worth of experience. And we all know that experience counts for a lot. So that other E is the experience. So my best piece of advice would be for anybody to have a look at their website and to think of a content plan. Say I'm going to start generating, let's say, an article or a blog once per month, and I'm going to look at something fundamental that already exists on my website, like client testimonials. That's probably one of the easiest places to go to say that I'm going to have once a quarter, I'm going to at least introduce a new one or change one that's in there, or so that Google can see that content's changing. But before you put pen to paper or start typing on your keyboard, put at the top of that document which EEAT you are trying to target, so that becomes part of your strategy.
Okay.
Because it's very easy to talk about yourself and forget about, actually, I could introduce how this fits, wider in the industry and build my authority score. So writing, I think a lot of people sort of fall into the trap of thinking, of course, I've got to introduce these keywords into my website. So I'm going to write long form articles where I mention video podcasting as often as I can. That's kind of old hat, and Google's got more sophisticated and clever at determining all of that. So have that acronym in your mind and start to see with the content on your website. I always think going away and having a coffee or even a beer, with a laptop, but taking yourself out of your current space with the actual objective in mind of I'm going to self-review the quality of my content on my website. and have a look at publishing more quality content and having a structure to it. Which of those 4 areas am I trying to satisfy? I think that will, in a DIY sense, be probably one of the most sensible things that you can do to sort of help get some of the Google momentum.
Amazing. Paul, thank you so much. I've learned a lot.
I'm more than welcome, and thank you so much for the opportunity of speaking with you.
No problem at all. It's been great to have you. Thank you for watching The Marketing Game. If you liked it, please hit that like button. If you leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Please subscribe so you get to know when the next episodes are out, and share it to anybody that you think might get some value out of it too. It helps us as well, pushes us up the algorithm, so we get this out to as many people as we possibly can.